Hi everyone, welcome back to the MoonCast podcast where we talk about digital assets, digital payments, and beyond. Today it's family only. I'm Razin Nizar and I'm joined by my beloved co-host Sanat Karkar. He's the Director of Legal and Regulatory Strategy of LPO&Law. And as both compliance and legal experts, in this episode, we'll be diving into how AI is shaping the legal and compliance landscape today in the years ahead. Sanat, how are you?
Very good. Thank you so much for the wonderful intro. Very professional. I love it.
Thank you. I practice on that, so. How do you think? How are you? How's things? How's life?
Things are good. Things are good. I've had a very busy week already. It's already Monday and I've had a busy week. So, it's getting crazy. I was in Saudi over the weekend working on a fun little real estate project that I've been working on, as you know, renovating these old villas from the 1950s, and just happy to be now finally back at office, out of the construction site, under the air conditioning, because it's extremely hot, if you don't know, in September in Saudi Arabia.
You did an outstanding makeover of that apartment. It's really good.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I remember you came and visited before the makeover.
You're also going to be talking in Saudi at Money 20.
Yes, exciting. Going to Riyadh on the 15th to the 17th of September. We will be at Money 2020. I'll be visiting one of my close friends, client, and also I'm an advisor at that company, Umla. Shout out to Umla. Umla is revolutionizing the blockchain infrastructure play for the financial institutions in Saudi Arabia. They are the first and the most advanced, I would say, in that space. And of course, I'm not biased at all. I think they're the greatest startup.
Yeah, it sounds like it. What will you be talking about in the event?
Well, we're going to be discussing a lot of things, but mainly we are discussing the role of private blockchain in the repo systems of banking, and how we could utilize blockchain for these services, custodial services specifically. And of course, Saudi Arabia is highly regulated when it comes to blockchain. So the main uses here we're talking about are in the private blockchain space. And of course, this is enabled with Avalanche, with the cooperation with Umla, and how they are implementing this in Saudi Arabia with the interbanking system.
Yeah, since we'll be talking about AI today, there any AI areas or companies that you know of that will be there?
No, not really. Not that I'm discussing there, at least. But I'm sure there is, because the agenda is full with a lot of things, and of course, AI top of mind for everyone nowadays.
Yeah.
But not from my personal perspective. However, it's good that you mention AI, because now there has been a lot of focus on it, right? From public agencies, they're adopting AI at scale, from banks to insurers. So you can imagine that this is going to be a top topic. One of the things that I've seen recently was the McKinsey 2025 Global AI Survey that shows more than 70% of large enterprises are already using AI in at least one business unit, right? So that's a huge jump from just 5 years ago when adoption was around like 30%. So where do you see it going? How about you? Have you seen how are things going in Malaysia?
That reminds me a little bit of how crypto was adopted. If you can recall our first podcast, like the adoption rate just surged dramatically over the past few years. And in Malaysia, it's the same thing too. We don't have specific AI law yet, for example, but it's becoming part and parcel of every businesses. A lot of businesses, marketing even, have been using AI as part of their tools. Transaction monitoring, eKYC deployers have been using AI. So it has become part and parcel of both users as well as businesses.
Yeah. And you're speaking as well, by the way. I forgot about that. You're also speaking soon at a big event. So tell us a little bit about that as well.
Oh yeah, so it'll be on financial crime actually. So LIDAC, which is organized by Luno, will be one of the first. It's actually the first conference that congregate the Web3 communities and the regulators, as well as traditional financial institutions under one roof in Malaysia. So I'm very excited about that. I'm going to be talking about financial crime, but also insert some AI elements into it as well, like how AI affects financial crimes in digital asset and blockchain space. So yeah, I'm very excited. It's going to be on 25th of September for our listeners out there. If you guys want to come join. But yeah, I'm very excited about that.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
This is really exciting. You're always up to something. You're always speaking somewhere, so it's nice to it's nice to hear things are going well. But I have something to mention to you here now, right? So you've also been working with LPO&Law on specifically the EU AI Act, right?
Yes.
Which comes
Yes.
into force in phases between 2025 to 2026.
Good.
It sets out, the risk-based framework.
Yes.
So I think this is a
Uh-huh.
huge development. And what I found really significant about it is the size of penalties that can go up to 35 million euros or
Yes.
7% of global turnover. That
Yes.
is much bigger
That's
than
correct.
GDPR fines, right? So
Yes.
what's happening there?
Much bigger. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So basically, EU AI Act was introduced to specifically address AI risk. The work that I've done with LPO, basically, I have to go through approximately 180 recitals or compliance requirements one by one over
Wow.
200 pages, analyzing what are the requirements. Just share in brief what is it. It's basically a comprehensive law that is applicable in EU jurisdictions as well as members that provides for compliance obligations such as transparency obligations, labeling, prohibited practices, stuff like that, which we will dive into in detail as we go through this podcast. But yeah, that's basically EU AI Act in general. And to give you context, in most this the first comprehensive law in the world, and other countries have yet to have such comprehensive law yet. So I'm aware of certain countries like Malaysia. We are conducting sectoral assessment. For example, the financial sectors are now being consulted by our regulators to see how AI is impacting the financial industry, what laws and regulations can come out from it. So that's what it is in a nutshell right now.
Well, I'm seeing it like this is the crazy part, right? Like I'm seeing the dichotomy of approach between different nations. I mean, the EU is always heavily regulated, which I love the EU. I'm a big EU fan. Aside from being a European citizen, that I encourage the practices that we do to protect the consumer, which is really important. The other aspect of it that I find, sometimes challenging though is like when you look at the US in contrast, where they are actually lobbying now and they've spoken publicly about this, it's to actually put a ban on AI regulation for 10 years so it doesn't hinder progress and innovation. So there's these two approaches that you see. It's quite the opposite reaction to
Yep.
AI.
Yeah. Again, very similar reaction to when the world introduces crypto. There's different spectrum. One resulted in risk avoidance where they want to ban it, and then there's another spectrum that okay, let's legislate AI, let's regulate, and then there's one portion that say that we shouldn't even regulate it. So there's a lot of spectrum. It's very interesting to see how the world is moving, and I'm also actually intrigued that that's the position that the US is taking. I've heard, they have security bans, especially on Chinese AI apps due to security concerns. So yeah, I'm curious to see where the new administration is going to take the AI approach. I know they are very open to digital asset adoption. So we'll see where they're going to take us with AI.
It's interesting. It's really interesting. I
Uh,
mean, like, this is the big debate that we have in the European Union generally, that we feel
yeah.
sometimes that the European Union sets a lot of regulatorily hurdles, which are on the big picture beneficial for the citizens. It protects their rights, their privacy, etc. But on the other side, it really damages, growth potential for startups and businesses.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
personally going through that when I was in Sweden. I had a startup. It was called Pixpops, and I was doing these like online printing, framing business, so people can submit their pictures. We have these tiles, you stick them and unstick them from walls, and they look fantastic. I'm not going to promote it because the business is no longer there. And part of the reason why the business was no longer there, I started it around before the GDPR compliance regulations rolled through. And then after the GDPR compliance rolled through, as a small startup owner, I utilized Facebook ads quite extensively and Google ads to get
Mm.
my customer base. Because what do you do as an online only business? You rely on on online advertising. And my main market was the EU, obviously. That's where I'm going to sell. I'm not going to be shipping things to the US. You start in your neighborhood. GDPR compliance rolls by, and suddenly all the Facebook algorithms don't work as good. I'm getting a lot less return of investment because I cannot target people based on their purchasing habits. So with increasing costs of advertising, I was not able to continuously scale the business. Although if you look at our numbers, like before and after GDPR was implemented, we were doing really good. We're climbing up. After GDPR, we crashed completely. Like the sales have dropped, the cost has climbed up, and a lot of startups ended up, pulling the plug on their online ventures. And if you remember, just before like 2018, this was like the peak of online e-commerce. Like everyone was opening shops and stuff. And a lot of these e-commerce players in Europe got marginalized unless you have already reached scale. They were able to spend more dough for the sale. And then that will obviously depend highly on your margins. It's all about the margin. So if you're in a low margin game, you cannot anymore afford to sell it. Advertising is gonna like eat up all of your margins. So this is a risk as well. So what do you think about that as well? Like shouldn't there be cautious implementation of regulations as well?
Okay, I have a thought about it actually because okay, I read a lot of EU laws and of course laws and guidelines in APAC, and I realize this is just a personal observation. The most obvious difference is the linguistics approach. So the EU really focuses on accuracy, especially with legal jargons. That's good because everything is accurate, easier to be debated easier to be discussed in the courts, and provides for more completeness. Whereas the guidelines in APAC, our language is very simplistic. So a
Like
lot of our
broad, you mean?
guidelines, broad, simplistic, like one word can mean five different things. So that shaped the way we produce regulatory requirements. So when I compare how lengthy EU AI Act versus how comprehensive the guidelines in Singapore, Malaysia, even Thailand, my advice to those in EU is if you want to be efficient, you can actually look at some guidelines in APAC because they go straight to the point and explain. So the guidelines in APAC focuses more on being user friendly. They are not intended for lawyers or practitioners. They're intended for the public. So it's a lot more, if you want to start, it's a lot more easier to start with that and then go with EU AI Act. Because even as a practitioner, like I spend a lot of time reading EU AI Act. So yeah, that's one observation that I made from this.
Yeah. But what do you think about the impact on business? That's like my main question, really. Like, do you think it's going to because look, right now we have a lot of companies using AI. I've seen from the EU specifically, you have Allianz, the huge insurance conglomerate, Deutsche Bank. You have a lot of these, using AI to detect fraud, using it for insurance claims, etc. But now you can see the issue, right? Like I'm going to be super worried as a business of using AI because I don't want to face those fines that can be in millions of dollars, 7% of global turnover, right? So you go from experimentation mindset to like, hey, it's a compliance mindset. So you're going to be now super scared to use any AI or experiment in using AI tools.
When we talk about how it will affect businesses, there's a lot. So let's talk about the good first. The good, I think, even for startups, now you have sort of a baseline on how to establish your controls. The majority of the guidelines in the EU AI Act is risk-based approach. That means you get to define your own controls. And of course, you need to have a practitioner to help you define those controls and get the right one. That's the good part. The bad part is actually, bigger companies have much bigger resources to be compliant. That's just natural.
Correct.
And Meta and OpenAI has a lot more capability, not only to be compliant, but to provide systems for startups to build their applications or to build their business on their app. And that could potentially create a serious over reliance on big tech for startups. And that means if a startup mess up, it can affect a lot of businesses. So that's one big risk when it comes to business. Yeah.
Okay. But that's the thing is, as you said, exactly. Like I'm not worried about Deutsche Bank. not being able to afford compliance. I'm more worried about smaller startups. So is there in the AI, the EU AI Act, does it differentiate by the company size when it comes to these violation fees that could be incurred, the 7% global turnover, or the millions of euros fines? Like, does it also hit the startups, or do the startups get a little leeway?
It depends on the severity of the offense. It depends on typically regulators, not just EU, regulators all around the world will look at the severity of the offense, the nature of the offense, the scale, as well as complexity of the business. So that is the maximum fine, but they'll also look at your size of business. The offense has to commensurate, the penalty, sorry, has to commensurate with the offense as well as the business size. So that's the general rule. But again, it can change depending on what type of offense it is, and how do they decide on it. So it really, really depends.
Okay. Okay. Well, that makes sense. At least it's not. It's a bit nuanced. It's not like so black and white.
Yeah,
But I feel like the penalty should fall more not on the user of the AI tools, more on the company providing the AI software, right? Like if the company messes up, the AI company, like the service provider, then they should be holding the.
Yeah, so the AI Act actually applies to providers and deployers, and even importers or distributors of AI system. For example, let's say if, there's an importer of AI system in Europe and import Chinese app that's AI, it's applicable to them as well. So including product manufacturers. So it is applicable to different segments of businesses that operate and deal with AI. Yeah.
Okay. So, but the thing is that to clarify then here, it's really important. You mentioned the good, the bad, and the ugly, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the good. So from the good, we know what businesses are gaining, right? They're gaining efficiency and innovation. These are the two key things. Efficiency is key, right? Now, the bad, let's talk about the bad. We have misuse and bias. So we already seen cases where generative AI was used in US courts with lawyers sanctioned in 2023 for citing non-existing cases that ChatGPT hallucinated.
Yes.
I find that hilarious, right? Like at least and then this is again, it's actually connected to the good as well. I feel because efficiency means less staff and less human eyes, but less human eyes could lead to more faulty use of AI, like citing fictional cases and not having a paralegal spot it at least.
Yeah.
So what is your views on that?
That's the thing about AI. So a lot of people think AI is about cybersecurity, or AI is about, just data privacy. AI is there's a lot of ethics that has to do with AI. How does ethics affect AI? Basically, it can define the boundaries as well as the purpose of the AI. For example, the EU AI Act specifically wants specifically the objective is for AI deployers in the EU to harmonize their systems with EU values. But EU values may not be the same as a Malaysian values. Because right now, for example, in Malaysia, what they're proposing is for the laws to reflect Malaysian values instead. So when the values are affected, the data injected to train the AI will be sort of biased to achieve that value, to achieve that goal. An example would be in Malaysia, the focus is financial inclusion. The focus is to help underserved people. So data is injected for the purpose of making sure that those people are not discriminated. So there's good and there's pros and cons in everything. The thing about data injection is it can produce biased results. And another bad example of how AI has resulted in biased result is I can't remember the name of the company on top of my mind, but in Australia, there's this recruitment company that uses AI to interview candidates as well as skim through CV. So they are programmed to do that. But the data that the AI use are majority from the United States, which is in native English speakers. And what the results is higher error for candidates that has an accent. So, and the error rate leads to failure. So that's how data can be biased and result in discriminatory outcomes. So that's the ugly part. So, which is why I think regulators around the world need to figure out what is the best way to deal with data governance. And every countries have different ethics. How do we harmonize it? Those are the things that I think worth discussing.
Okay. Okay. I mean, yeah, I mean, every country has different ethics. I can see that. But I mean, I think there is some type of universal ethic that everyone
Yeah.
can find, right? Like, and this is where,
Yeah.
where the issue is. I'm more concerned, honestly, for when I think of the bad, what I'm more concerned about is privacy more than anything else. People today are
Oh, yeah.
trusting chat tools with everything: personal matters, health matters, legal matters, right?
Yeah.
And what if like the AI companies can be subpoenaed to release these details because you're not talking to a lawyer, you're talking, or a doctor, where you have this patient doctor confidentiality or client attorney confidentiality. They can pierce right through it. And what does that mean for due process? What does it mean for justice? These are the bigger questions that keep me up at night, especially for law firms that are using AI tools today, right? Like, this is crazy.
They can. So for our listeners out there, think of AI system the same way as how you think what a bank would do. They process information that you input or you insert in AI. Let's use ChatGPT for example. Whatever that you share, including your sensitive information. Let's say if you upload your medical records, you upload. Please don't do this. Like if you upload client names and stuff like that, there are staff or a system that monitors every single conversation. And if I'm not mistaken, the CEO of OpenAI even admitted that, OpenAI will provide evidence to regulators if they've been subpoenaed for whatever legal reasons. So yes, the privacy concerns are there. It works the same way as when we give up our sensitive information to the banking system. So we just need to be aware of it. And in one of my trainings, I remember I shared this video of a girlfriend manipulating the algorithm of a phone. It may sound unrelated, but hear me out. So she wants her boyfriend to take her out on a date. So she took her phone's boyfriend and then repeatedly say the words, a fantastic date, fantastic date, fantastic date. So that's a thing that explains how interconnected everything is, including AI app. And you do need to know what are the practical steps to turn off your mic and what are the information, what are the digital footprint that you think you want to leave, not just AI platform, but social media, because everything is interconnected and then, they speak to each other basically. So yes, privacy concerns are a huge thing.
Exactly. And again, this is,
Yeah.
again, the privacy aspect is like, this is where I see the real cultural problems, right?
Yes.
Or the cultural differentiations. In the EU,
No.
privacy is prominent. Like, that's why we have
Yeah.
the forget me laws, or delete me forever laws, right? That, and protection
Yeah.
laws for GDPR, etc., where privacy is really important. In the US, less so, to be honest. Like, they talk about privacy being important, but in reality, it's to a much lesser extent. Same thing in, like, look at China. What is their privacy rights there? How do they look like?
Yeah.
So it's quite different from one place to the other. And this is where I see, like, the risks. I think the key risks that, in the conspiracy sphere that spikes everyone's attention is things like social scoring systems. And this is something the
Yeah.
AI Act addresses directly, which China has, like this social credit score system that people keep talking about. I'm not very well versed in the China social credit score. I've heard a lot of things, but again, I've just heard things, and I don't know to what extent it's true and what extent it's like, propaganda, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I think this is where it gets really tricky.
Yeah. I mean, it's already it's already embedded in the financial system. We've already been scored everywhere we go.
Like credit score, you mean?
Credit score in the financial system, you are already assessed if your profile is high risk or not based on multiple factors such as your occupations or your income or your transactions, for example. Even every immigration department would have their own criteria list to score you. So we've already been scored. I think the question is in the future, how would AI score us? How to what extent we will be scored. So
Okay. That's a very interesting point to it. But
Yeah.
there's a difference, I think, between financial credit score and social
Then
credit
social.
score. There's a
Yeah.
huge, like because,
Yeah.
okay, financial credit score is based on like variables such as how soon do you pay your debts? Are you responsible? Do you take loans more than you can afford? Like all these things, which are important to take financial decisions on, right? Like if I'm a guy who's known to
Yeah.
go bankruptcy route, maybe I'm not a good person to be loaned money to, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not a reliable person. It's a financial decision.
Yeah.
But if I, for example, have opposing political views, and then now suddenly I'm, being scored on that
Yeah.
becomes a risk. And again, as you said, there is cultural element to it, societal element to
Yeah.
it. In Europe, you're supposed to have some level of freedom of thought and speech, supposedly,
Yeah.
although it's being challenged today in a lot of states. And I think that's what raises the risk even further. Like,
Yeah.
speech laws in the EU today is not as free as it used to be, and is getting more and more restrictive. More people are getting jailed for tweets
Yeah.
and Facebook comments, where it
Yeah.
should be a normal public discourse. And add the
Yeah.
layer of AI to that. Now, can you imagine if Meta is keeping tabs on what you're saying and reporting it back to the government? So
Yeah.
that's I think the big risk here. And I don't know, how does the AI Act addresses this? Is there any addressing? Are they
Yeah.
forbidding and that's what I read somewhere. I haven't read the AI Act, but I've read reports on it that these are specific areas that are being banned outright in the EU Act.
They are okay. So two things that I want to talk. First of all, about Meta. Before I forget, Meta is the EU arising from the EU AI Act. EU also releases the GPAI, General Purpose AI Code of Conduct. When you mentioned Meta, it reminded me that Meta is the one of the only big techs that did not sign it because they do not want to comply with it, obviously. Whereas OpenAI and Google signed the code of practice. Something interesting that I had in my mind. But your second one, what are the prohibited AI practices? There's a couple that explicitly stated. One of them include anything that any AI that could have manipulative subliminal techniques, or some AI system that can exploit the vulnerabilities of special needs users, biometric categorization for that sexual orientation, religion, political belief. So those are some of the things that social scoring, for example, social scoring is also one of the prohibited practices under the EU AI Act. So anything that can be prejudicial to human basically is prohibited. So there's a list
Fantastic.
of them. Yeah. So an example would be if you try now, I think it's already in place with OpenAI. If you ask OpenAI to can you recreate my face, you will definitely have a prompt to say that hey, we are not allowed to do this to prevent deepfake and whatever. Some big
Really?
tech has already they have already implemented these measures because manipulating deepfake, for example, is part of the prohibited practices. So you can try it out. Like try to ask ChatGPT to recreate your face as exactly as it is.
Absolutely, 100%. I do see that as well. Like there should be these restrictions. And I remember when we had the chat with Jessica as well, where we talked about North Korean spies using artificial intelligence to mimic, other people, basically using deep
Yeah.
fakes to pretend to be Westerner people. There's even like AI that masks your accent, so you can speak with a flawless
Yes.
American accent or
Yes.
English accent or whatever you want. So
Yeah.
it's quite fascinating. It's an interesting space for us to be living through. To be honest, it's a bit scary.
Yeah.
How about things about like job loss, right? Like I've read a report recently as well. I believe it was by, if I'm not mistaken, it was by. Let me double check again. I want to say, it was one of the big four that talked
Okay.
about that AI is only gonna take away 25% of, give or take, the workforce across industries. But that means there's still like 75% is still human or so, or
Yeah.
human led. What do you
Yeah.
see? this was the report. The report was actually by Goldman Sachs that estimates AI could automate 25% of tasks across industries, but that means 75% of tasks will still need people, obviously. So this is a misconception that a lot of people believe AI is going to eliminate all jobs, but it seems to be pointing against that.
Yeah, so that's okay. My personal view is I'm not for fear mongering, and I always believe that whenever there's an introduction of technology, there's always that scare of how automation can affect the job market. I mean, if we go back, apart from the digital asset, if we go back to how Uber was first introduced, there's a lot of fear that it will replace taxi drivers. So the same fear that I'm observing in AI in the legal and compliance space. I mean, yes, some jobs that can be automated, like clerk filing or admin job, those are probably going to be replaced because it's a lot easier to and faster to do it via AI. But then there are also jobs that will evolve alongside with AI because now more companies are adopting AI, more companies are using Gemini or OpenAI to help to facilitate them to do day-to-day tasks. And AI skill is a necessary skill for legal and compliance certain roles. Another example would be, let's say, if you are a transaction monitoring analyst, previously you may not need AI background, then now you probably do to understand how you can incorporate the red flags that you know into the system. And then there will also be a new job creations. An example that we have already seen is, when it comes to GDPR, in Malaysia at least, back then, there's no requirement to have a data protection officer, for example. And then now we do. And with the introduction of AI and AI compliance and legal, there will be very niche legal and compliance jobs, AI data governance officer, for example, AI compliance officer. So those are the things that will emerge. So I don't think AI will kill the job market. I think human will adapt to it. That's how I see it.
Yeah, but I'm a bit skeptical, to be honest.
Why are you skeptical?
Because the thing is, AI is developing so fast that I'm just comparing. I've been using AI since the onset of it. As soon as ChatGPT, I forgot, 3 was released, I was already on board and I was using it. Comparing ChatGPT 3 to 5 Pro today using deep search or other activities like that in just a span of 2 years is a leap. It's a gigantic leap. It's not a small leap. It's a gigantic leap. It can do the job of the big 4 consultancy companies now within 15 minutes. It takes a bit longer to render something deep and complex, but it can still do it within minutes. Honestly, the quality is a lot of times. I've worked with McKinsey. I've worked with the big 4s when I was on the client side, where we would hire them and they would do reports for us. It's much better. And what's better about it, that I can ask it infinite questions to verify and to further verify information. It will keep doing the verification. I can feed it actual legislations, regulations, and I can ask it to respond back to me and analyze them, and then I can double check as a human, and it can do a much better job than a human. And this just happened this was impossible 2 years ago, but it is possible today, 2025 September, right, of this year. So if it can do that within 2 years, what can it do in the next 2 years or the next 5 years or worse, the next 10 years? So I think they're underplaying its impact on society and the job loss that it will create.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'm in a different position now, but what I can observe is apart from a new job replacement or job creation or job evolution, the way business operate will be different as well. Back in the days, it's very common to have permanent employees. So I think with AI, businesses are more prone to find out which one is the most efficient way of doing business, whether implementing AI will have more employees. And on the flip side of it, gig economies will probably flourish. There'll be more and more independent consultants, more and more independent engineers,
do you think so?
more and more independent, more and more independent technician that works on project basis.
I say the opposite. I see gig economy collapsing. I see the gig economy collapsing and the big 4 collapsing. All services that can be rendered through verbal analytical practices like consulting, analysis, the only, I think, positions that are going to be very safe in that space is regulatory required and regulatory licensed professions. Like
Oh.
lawyers, you cannot get rid of lawyers for one reason. You need to have lawyers that are licensed to practice law. You need compliance professionals for compliance reasons. They're not going to let you use a machine fully yet, at least for these two professions yet. I have to really specify the yet. But like a lot of other positions, well, I feel like they're going to, there's no way they're not going to. Gig economy today, most of it is doing creative work, right? Like you do graphic design, you do video editing, you do AI does all of that now within a few prompts.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So
But I mean, that's why, that's why I think like it's very important for whoever the listeners are, if you are startup founders, practitioners, compliance officers, very important to have AI skills. I actually see it on the other end because I think I just read about how gig economy is flourishing, at least in Malaysia. I can't remember the percentage, but like in Malaysia, we just introduced this gig workers bill 2025 just because now the trend is to be independent
yeah,
consultants or independent workers in whatever field. Yeah, I mean, it's that's my prediction of how AI will
but
change the job
but
market.
but see, this is the problem with regulators. Okay, regulators take forever. Technology doesn't. Like the AI,
Yes.
the EU AI Act took 3 years to draft. By the way, it's sorry, it's not like they just suddenly drafted it. They've been drafting it for 3 years. What happened
Yes.
in 3 years? So like,
Yes.
it's like any regulation that comes out, say, hey, we're going to regulate this. And that's like, you're too late. Technology catches up so much faster
Yes.
than it takes you to regulate.
Yes. So
So I don't know. I feel like there's going to be a global risk. Honestly, I cannot see it otherwise. That there's going to be a global risk. And you're right about your assertion that people should learn to use AI tools now because you have very short window to capitalize as much as possible on this before it becomes as easy as Googling something and everyone knows how to use
yeah.
it properly. And then suddenly
Yeah.
there's going to be shortage in the market and they're not going to need to hire a lot of people. And
Yes.
they're just gonna, again, if you look at capitalism, this is the problem with capitalism. Let's get into a political debate here, right? The problem with capitalism is Detroit. If you look at Detroit, you know the problem of capitalism. Detroit was one of the
Yeah.
top, it was the third richest city in the world. In the world, not like globally, it was as rich as a country, richer than many countries. And that was during the peak of the automotive industry. Unions raised, employee rights raised, and they were like, hey, we can do it cheaper in Mexico. We can do it cheaper in China. We can do it cheaper in India. We can just export all of our manufacturing needs to other places that are cheaper. Do you think capitalism hesitated twice to do that? Look at Detroit today.
No.
It was a
Yes.
city for 7 million people. Today, like a few 100,000 people that live there. It's a ghost town. It got destroyed completely. Like livelihoods destroyed, cities destroyed from. So businesses always look in a capitalistic system, look for the bottom line. How do we increase shareholder value? How do we? So I feel like without regulations, not allowing companies to like mass firing of people in replacement of AI, it's they're gonna do it unless you stop them.
I mean, to me, that's also why I'm always pro regulation because I always believe any risk should be controlled in some ways, as long as the regulation is not prohibitive to business, as long as the regulation does not just benefit the big tech. Because and as long as the languages or the principles used in the regulation allows for businesses to innovate compliance control. Because without the things that I've just said, like what you said, capitalism is not going to have any mercy on you. And AI just expedite whatever risk
Yes.
that you're exposed to.
It's like putting everything. It's putting capitalism on steroids. That's what it's
Yes.
doing, right?
Yes, it is. Yes.
And that's the scary part.
That is the scary part. And that's why I think for listeners who are not in the EU, even though it's not regulated in your country yet, you do have to look at the EU AI Act because it provides a baseline for your business on how to protect your company from AI risk. Not just protect your company, but also guide your employees how to use AI responsibly because there could be a potential of employee negligence, data leak, stuff like that.
Correct.
So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that's the biggest risk right now. And the bigger companies that I've been consulting and working with are building their own AI models, obviously from ChatGPT, but on private servers to protect the data, to do all these things. I mean, there is a higher level of protection if you do that. But it's really interesting to see. And I think like one of the things that I read in the EU AI Act or about it is that companies are being pushed to create AI ethics boards and compliance functions. So that seems again a new area for maybe compliance practitioners to expand into new area. So, Gartner did a projection that by 2027, 80% of enterprises will have AI risk policies in place.
Yes.
So where would you recommend like regulatory compliance practitioners to learn more about it, and how can they, is there already any courses being given online that could help people like, build up their credentials and be ready for this growth in the industry?
They are. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, one of the association that I provides that is probably ICA, International Compliance Association. But I think there's a lot of multiple other AI related certifications that you can take. If you don't want to, I mean, if you want to start small, there's multiple online courses that you can take that doesn't necessarily give you professional certification, but at least give you a baseline on or foundation of AI. Because AI is quite complex. It's like learning blockchain again, basically. And things that I think are quite different is AI is mostly about understanding the model registration, how the model is registered, how it retires, how do you do assessment on the AI is completely different because every sector has their own assessment. How do you validate the data? How do you oversee the life cycle of the AI system? And then there are different issues like performance drift and stuff, etc. So those are the things that are completely unique to AI that I think like legal and compliance officers kind of have to know.
Yeah. Great advice. So now I think it's time to go to our rapid fire. And I have a few questions that I prepared for you. So, and I know I didn't give you these in advance, so it'll be good to get your spontaneous response. So let's start with the first one. If AI were a rebellious teenager, what's the one rule it keeps breaking that compliance cannot ignore?
If AI is a teenager, I would say transparency because, I mean, this is stereotyping, but teenagers are at the age where they probably have yet to learn the art of filtering. So I think transparency rules would be one of the first rules that I would make for teenagers.
That's a good one. Honestly, I think transparency is important. So transparency in terms of whether you're talking to AI or not. I think that's an important thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It can fool you pretending to be someone else, like a human.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So you've seen a lot of messy compliance cases throughout your career, and you've been reading a lot about AI recently. So what's the wildest AI oops you think we'll laugh about in 5 years?
That's a good question. The most AI oops situation, I think. Okay, give me a sec.
Like something
Honestly, this is
like sorry, it was just like something that people are doing today that are, it's very common, but in 5 years, like, how the hell did we even do that? How did we even do this without worrying about, that's what I meant.
I've seen multiple posts stating that ChatGPT is best used for therapy, which is great. But please be aware that your information, all of your trauma dumping is actually monitored and seen by their staff. So those are the things that I'm like, be careful.
Oh God. Like perfect for blackmail situation to happen. This is terrifying.
And like the risk is again, if I'm a criminal, the next goal, I'm not teaching criminal, but the next goal is to like hack this AI and find out what private information that you can use for blackmail, like what you said. So be careful,
Absolutely.
guys.
Absolutely. Next one. If regulators had a superhero name in the AI space, would they be the watchdog, the firefighter, or the snail?
Honestly, I think it's the snail. I mean, I understand the bureaucracy involved in creating legislation, guidelines, and act, but we are at the age where compliance risks have way outpaced regulatory requirements. And we're not even talking about now. It has outpaced regulatory requirements since COVID-19, when digital payments started to surge. So I would say snail. Sorry.
Yeah. It's all right. Snails are resilient creatures too. So, and wise beyond our years, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. So finish the sentence. In compliance, trusting AI without oversight is like ...
trusting compliance without
No, so in compliance,
oversight.
trusting AI without oversight is like
It's like not conducting due diligence before you go on dates. You're bound to have a terrible first date if you
do you
don't.
do you
If you
conduct due
don't,
diligence before you go on a date?
of course, I have to know who they are. Like I'll have to know if this person is creepy or not before I put myself in a situation.
You're such a compliance person. I'm married, so I don't date anymore. But before marriage, I don't think I've ever done any due diligence on dates. And I ended up getting married somehow, so it worked out. But yes, I agree with you. Due
Good for
diligence
you.
would have saved me a lot of pain and suffering. I agree. Uh, so if you had a magic wand and could fix one compliance headache around AI instantly, what would disappear tomorrow?
If I have a magic, it would be to figure out how to fix the problem of data biasness. Just because, again, like we talk about ethics affect how data is input into the system. I mean, at this point, it's still a debate because there's a huge spectrum of ethics, not just from religion, cultural point of view. There's also business point of view. I mean, it's just a spectrum. So if I could have a magical wand, that's something that I could just fix because to answer that question, it will take a lot of research. If I can just fix it once, it will be done.
That's a good one. Maybe
Yeah.
something AI could fix. Uh,
Yeah.
Okay, great. So now that we finished our rapid fire, maybe we can conclude with some final messages that we would like to share with our audiences about this topic.
No, before that, I have
Oh, there's
5
something.
questions for you too.
Okay. Oh, damn. All
I
right.
have 5 questions for you too.
Okay, let's
Okay.
go.
So are you ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's hit it.
So if the first question, if you were a regulator, what's the first rule that you'd make for AI?
Do not kill humans.
That's a
You
good
know,
one.
yeah, I think it's the best one. I think, and I say it as a joke, but I do mean it on a more serious note. I think that it should have no harm to humans, like hard coded into every AI. Whether
Yes.
we've seen cases where AI have harmed people by giving bad advice or encouraging suicide. Even there's been a recent case.
Yes.
So I think like the harm no human should be hard coded like into every AI
Yes.
that we're developing.
That's valid. Just to add a fact as well, like I think in country like Libya, there's an AI drone that can detect your face and find you and kill you. So that's
Yes,
a valid key point.
the weaponization of AI as well. Like these are the two things, and
Yes.
it's something we've started discussing years ago, but unfortunately, I don't know where it's heading. But it should be definitely hard coded into global ethics. Like you should be
Speaking
sanctioned
of kill,
if you don't hard code that into your development.
speaking of weaponry and killing, if you were to direct a movie about AI, what genre would it be?
Oh God, it will definitely be like Black Mirror style, kind of like a decent,
Yeah.
dystopian future.
Yeah.
I'm a big user of AI, but I think we do need these rails. We need very strong rails to make sure it doesn't turn
Yeah.
out to a Black Mirror situation.
Yeah. Do you think it's even possible for AI to turn us actually into a utopia?
Yes, of course, right? Like, but with hard rails, like that's the part that I
Yeah.
think like regulation is quite important. Like, it should not be used for mass surveillance. It should not be used, and a lot of things that the EU AI Act already addresses. But I think it needs to
Yeah.
become more universal. Like you would sanction a country for having weapons of mass destruction, you should be able
Yeah.
to sanction countries and that don't enforce such policies. So yes,
Exactly. That's good. Okay. Third question. What's one thing that AI hasn't done yet, but would make your life easier?
Wow. Okay. Something that AI hasn't done yet, but would make my life easier. I would say honestly, like they do have AI agents, but if they can have more efficient, more like, responsive AI agents that can just go with the flow and do what I would do on daily basis and help me not work so I can spend time with my kids, I would love that. That would be fantastic. If I can like model
Oh,
my brain after it and it can just do the task for me, not in a Black Mirror style, so it's not conscious, but
yeah.
that it can take decisions rationally, that would be awesome.
Yeah, you don't want to be replaced.
No.
And then
And I don't want a virtual version of me like stuck in a computer, like a slave having to do my work either.
I have an AI avatar of me on ChatGPT,
I know you
but
do.
it's not as creepy. It's not as creepy.
You didn't
All right.
download your brain into it, so at least that's not there.
Okay, fourth question. It's very special. Who's more helpful to you, AI or me?
I have to say, unfortunately, Razin, at this point, it's AI, and you were until AI came through, until ChatGPT 5 Pro, I would say. But to be fair, it's more useful than me as well. So I'll give you that as well.
And then the surprise one, okay, if you were to talk to this 25-year-old sonnet, I don't know if you can see it. If this sonnet had ChatGPT, sorry, he's 23. If this 23-year-old sonnet had ChatGPT, how different would your law school experience be?
Oh my God. I think, it would be a lot different. It would be so much different just because I use it still today to learn better. So I would have spent a lot less time in the library as I did before, going through actual books and reports and reading them. And I would be like doing my research completely online. I mean, I went to law school a long time ago, right? So back then, granted, you have like tools like LexisNexis and Westlaw that you can still use a computer, but to give me summaries instead of reading long judge case, like judge opinions, and you still don't know what the heck did they decide at the end? Like,
yes. I think you will consume much less mother if you remember that energy drink.
Absolutely, 100%, 100%. I think for my mental well-being, it would have been a lot. I would have been a lot more healthier in my early 20s.
Yeah. All right. So that's all the questions that I have for you for the icebreaker session.
Oh my God, that picture! My God, I can't believe you have it printed as well.
I know.
Crazy.
I was probably 19 and you were 23.
Yep. Back in the day. I think this was in Halloween, that picture. We were dressed as dictators. I think I was Fidel Castro.
Yeah, we did.
I was Fidel Castro, but didn't have the beard to support it.
You look good and you still look good now.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Cool. So, let's go for our final takeaways then. And we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
Final takeaway. So what is your final takeaway? What is your advice to everyone listening?
My advice is to keep on, for general audience, keep on learning about AI instead of running away from it. Be very technical. Don't follow the hype. Follow the technical aspect of it. And for businesses, do not wait for regulators. Like what we said, the regulators can be snails in some jurisdictions. Do not wait for regulators. Look for existing framework to basically be a base or foundation of your compliance control, because AI risks will definitely outpace regulatory requirements. So that's my closing take.
Very great closing take. My final closing take is to practitioners: be proactive, not reactive, like we have been talking about. If you're a lawyer or a compliance officer, don't wait for your regulators to tell you what's coming. Learn from the EU AI Act, because I believe it's going to be the baseline for a lot of other jurisdictions for prohibited practices that might become enforceable in your jurisdiction. And CEOs, treat AI compliance like GDPR 2.0, right? Companies that ignored it, they ended up suffering and paid dearly. The British they were fined 22 million euros in 2020 for data breaches. So it's just, the same playbook will apply to AI. Build compliance early is cheaper, and retrofitting later is a lot easier than waiting to the last minute. And so
I always advise my clients to please redefine or reshift your perception of what compliance is. It's not just about complying the rules. It's about understanding the risk that can put your business down or that can significantly affect your business, to take proactive actions to protect your business. And on top of that, to have competitive edge against your competitors.
Absolutely. Good ending to this. Perfect. Well, Thank you everyone for listening, and stay tuned for the next episode. We're going to have a special guest, so stay tuned. We're not going to spoil it yet, but we're going to dive deeper into the blockchain and crypto space next. Have a good one.
See you on the next one.
Bye-bye.